What is up, my brothers and sisters, my agents of respect? It's your boy TreJuanJohnson back with another episode of the No Disrespect But podcast. Before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Always feel free to comment. Just make sure you keep those comments respectful. And if you're interested in supporting your favorite podcast of yours truly, your boy's Cash App is in the episode description. So appreciate all the support. Now, today's episode, as you can imagine, will revolve around the college football playoff. It's expanded to 12 teams. We're getting our first game tonight with Notre Dame versus Indiana, and it should be a good one. It's frigid temperatures. I believe it was heavy snow last time I checked, about 12 hours ago or something like that. So there's going to be very bad weather, but this is weather that these two teams are accustomed to. You got Riley Leonard, who transferred in from Wake Forest, leading Notre Dame, whose only loss was to Northern Illinois earlier in the year. Indiana, whose only loss was to Ohio State. They got destroyed, but that's their only loss, led by Curtis Rourke, who at this point, with a lot of the time in between games, is a lot healthier than he was in that Ohio State game. And, one of the better quarterback prospects coming into, or in the playoffs. So, very veteran savvy team, not a team where you would say that Indiana has a guy or a few guys, but defense is going to be really big for them. And obviously, like I said, Curtis Rourke being able to lead that offensive unit could pose some problems for Notre Dame. But I'll get more into that a little bit later. But, the question, and it's been happening obviously the past week and a half or so, or a few weeks since obviously Alabama was removed from the college football playoff in favor of SMU, who lost their conference championship game, but only had two losses on the year. And of course, everyone, once you see the 12-team format and who the participants are, they ask you. And it's a general question. I mean, there's no hard feelings intended, but it's who do you think, who you going for? Who you think's going to win? And when it comes to who I'm going for, I say Bama. I mean, I'm an Alabama fan, at this FBS level through and through. I'm not rooting for another team, right? And like, no disrespect, but I'm here to tell you, I will be hate watching. If there was a scenario where all 12 teams could lose and we don't end up with a national champion, and they say, well, none of these 12 teams won the national championship, we got to give it to Alabama. I would sign up for that 365 days a week, twice on Sundays. If that was a scenario that was possible, given Alabama kind of crap in the bed against Vandy, Tennessee too, and obviously Oklahoma, losing by 21 points. But I'm not rooting for anyone. Now I'll probably watch games because typically in the years that Alabama has not made the college football playoff, I honestly have been very disinterested in who's playing and what the games look like. I may catch it here and there, kind of have it as background noise. But given that there are some teams that typically I wouldn't see, Arizona State, Boise, even SMU, there are teams that we typically wouldn't see, whether it was the BCS era or the 14 college football playoff era. Like, we wouldn't see these teams, and you catch them for bowl games, but you would not catch them having the opportunity for a national championship. And so, even though I'm butthurt, I'll probably put some of that aside because honestly, I want to hate watch. And I think you guys know which game I'm probably hate watching the most, and that will be SMU versus Penn State, because that's the team that got in over Alabama. And to make matters worse, they put them as a higher seed than the team that beat them in the conference championship, being Clemson. So I hate it even more because they should be playing the Texas Longhorns in Austin, not going to Penn State. I feel like that should be Clemson if we are, keeping the integrity of conference championships, right? That's what we were told. But that's really what it is. Like, I'm going to hate all the way. Every tweet I put out is going to be talking about how, if SMU isn't playing well, I'm going to talk about it. If they are playing well, I'm gonna shut up and I'm not gonna say anything, and other people are gonna talk to me about it. But then I'll just have to say, hey, Penn State sucks anyway. We know they're not anybody. They didn't play anybody this year either, so this really means nothing. Whatever it is, that is going to be me. So when it comes to, hey, Trey, who are you rooting for out of the 12 teams? I am rooting for zero. Absolutely zero. I don't care about the Cinderella stories. I don't care about the underdogs. I don't care about Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs and them and having the toughest schedule in the nation and being able to have being a good or having a good opportunity to get another national championship. I think that would be his third in 4 years, if I'm not mistaken, because they went back to back. They didn't make it last year. Yes, that would be his third in 4 years, which is incredible. But yeah, I'm hate watching everybody. And to the champion, congratulations. But Bama gonna be back. I'm more focused on us playing on, playing against Michigan and how our guys get to go out. See what happens with Jalen Milroe's decision. I think Tyler Booker's all but made up his mind he's going pro after the game. So that is what Trey is looking forward to: Alabama versus Michigan. But I will say, in being a college football fan, there are some games that I at least want to see. And before I kind of get into my predictions, I do want to talk a little bit about the games I'm excited to see. We talked about Notre Dame, Indiana tonight. And I'm not really too keen on that. Obviously, I really want to watch SMU Penn State. We know what Penn State's atmosphere is on a typical Saturday game. Now it's playoff implications. I want to see what that vibe looks like for them. So excited to see that game. Really excited to see Tennessee, Oregon. I mean, Tennessee, Ohio State. I think it's going to be the best game out of all the games. Two teams that can be very explosive offensively. But you also understand that Tennessee is one of the better defenses in the nation. They have a pass rush and defensive line that can get after you. Really solid in the back end with their secondary. Very opportunistic. But they have a young guy quarterback, freshman Nico. Ohio State, they have the veteran guy in Howard, Will Howard, and he has a championship pedigree, winning a conference championship with Kansas State a couple years ago, and so he brings kind of that moxie, that big game ability. Didn't quite show it against Michigan. Honestly, all they need to do is beat Michigan, and they have the opportunity to end up being the number one overall seed with a win over Oregon in the conference championship, which obviously didn't happen. They didn't face each other, and Oregon went on to beat Penn State. But I think this will be good. They got explosive playmakers on the outside, really good running attack. So I want to see, how they utilize their two backs, but also how they use Will Howard's running ability. I feel like not that it's been non-existent, but they just haven't really gone to it. And I think now that you're in the playoffs and you got to do whatever it takes to win or go home, I think you might see Will Howard utilize his legs a little bit more like he used to at Kansas State. So those are maybe the two big games that I'm really looking forward to, being SMU and Penn State and Tennessee, Oregon. But a lot of really good matchups, or at least a lot of good opportunities for good matchups. And so we'll see what that looks like. But let me just dive into my predictions. And some of this, I will full disclosure, some of this is how do I say this? Some of this is just me being a hater. And you'll know the exact game where I'm being a hater and picking against a team just because I do not like them and I don't want them to be good. And you'll know the exact game. I won't even tell you. But just kind of looking at the bracket and want to get to that bracket. So, like I said, we got Notre Dame, Indiana tonight. The winner of that game gets to face UGA on New Year's Day. And so, like I said, just looking at the matchup, talked about the quarterbacks, two guys I really like, and Riley Leonard and Curtis Rourke, two different types of guys. Riley is going to be more of that dual threat, can make you pay with his legs and his arm to a degree. Obviously, they don't have a lot of skilled players on a perimeter that just stand out. They have a really good tight end who's probably going to get drafted in this year's draft class or this upcoming draft class. Indiana mentioned Curtis Ward, a guy that can make him some money should they go on a run. But um, and Coach Signetti from that Saban tree has been doing some great things in his first year with Indiana. But I gotta go with. I mean, I'm probably going with the brand here. Notre Dame at home. I know they had a tough loss early in the year to Northern Illinois, but they have been pretty good. Haven't really played a ton of competition, but neither has Indiana. But I just think Notre Dame is maybe a little bit more battle tested, and so I am going to roll with them to win at home tonight against Indiana and face UGA. Then we have early tomorrow morning. We have SMU versus Penn State, which is stupid. Why can't we give Penn State a night game? Like Jesus Christ. Anyways, Penn State is going to be playing in a blizzard versus SMU. And if I'm not mistaken, doesn't SMU play in a dome? I don't know. I'll fact check that. But we all saw the ACC championship game, y'all. Like, I know what the fourth quarter looked like and how they marched back, but it was obvious that Clemson took their foot off the gas. I just don't think SMU was ready. I didn't think they were a playoff team to begin with, and I sure as hell don't think they're a good enough team to go up to Penn State and win with that crowd, with that defense, and the way Drew Adler has come up towards the end. Like, didn't have a good showing against Ohio State, in my opinion, and I'm always hard on him, always hard on Penn State. But going toe-to-toe against that Oregon defense and giving Penn State an opportunity to win and not only win the Big Ten championship, but also end up being number one overall seed because I believe had they won, they would have been the number one seed. I got Penn State winning that game and kind of running away with it, literally and figuratively, because we talked about Drew Allen, but they have a dynamic duo in the running back position. Tyler Warren, I do not think SMU has anyone in their secondary, anyone in their linebacker group that can cover that guy and stop him from taking the game over. So I'm going with Penn State big on that one. And just so y'all know, that game is not the hate watch. I actually believe Penn State's a much better team, just FYI. In case some of y'all that know me, y'all gonna say, that's the hate watch game. It's not. Tennessee, Ohio State. Now, I hate Tennessee. I hate them. I do not want them to do well at all. Obviously, they are a rival of Alabama. They beat us this year. They've actually beaten us twice in the last 3 years. It makes me sick to my stomach. I just hate it. But I have more faith in them than I do in Ohio State. When I think about the front seven and how Tennessee's front seven has taken games over this year, while Ohio State, I think with the guys they have on that line, we have continuously been waiting all year for them to wreck a game. And if I can't have confidence that you can wreck a game against Tennessee, who has really good players on the outside, a really good young quarterback, a really good running back, one of the best offensive play callers in the game in Josh Heupel, I got to go with what I know. And I've seen a few Ohio State games. I haven't been entirely impressed with what they've been able to do. Really like Will Howard. And like I said, he is a veteran guy. He could step up, but he's also a guy that can get rattled maybe a little bit easier. If you kind of hit him in the mouth, you stop that run game, you force him to be in positions where he has to beat you consistently. That's not where Will Howard excels. And I think Tennessee is going to try to take away the run game, and they're not going to blitz as much. They're going to trust their front seven and especially their front four, their defensive line that has James Pierce Jr., who's going to be a bona fide first-round pick. I think he starts to, make his claim. And I think Tennessee gets the big road win against Ohio State. And obviously the winner of that game faces Oregon. And I think I mentioned the SMU Penn State winner faces Boise. Now this matchup, the winner of the Clemson-Texas matchup will face Arizona State. And here's my thing. When Saban was the head coach of Alabama, In my humble opinion, I felt that the only two coaches that were on his level to a degree, or at least the two immediate behind him, were Kirby Smart and Dabo Swinney. Now that Coach Saban has retired, I believe that the two best coaches in college football are Kirby Smart and Dabo Swinney. And these are the games, and this is the times where Dabo Swinney has been here before. Sark has won big games as an offense coordinator, but he hasn't won these big games yet as a head coach. And when I say big games, I mean this playoff atmosphere. Last year was the first year that Texas made it to the playoffs. And Washington was essentially running them off the field for a while and essentially kept the lead the whole game. I don't think Washington trailed at any point in that matchup. And yes, Texas is at home, and you want to have confidence that, hey, they're in Austin, their crowd's going to be crazy. They're playing against, Cade Klubnik, who's a pretty good quarterback, but, has his moments where he looks like he doesn't belong in college football. And the way that front seven, especially that defensive line in Texas, can get after you, and they have the reigning Jim Thorpe Award winner right now, and Clemson isn't the Clemson of old with the star-studded wide receiver core. I can see why, rationally speaking, you would pick Texas to win this game. But I've seen Texas go up against a team where there's a coaching mismatch. I've seen them, and they've done that twice against UGA, and Kirby Smart has coached circles around Sark. And that's no offense to Sark, but it's just the truth of the matter. And if I believe Kirby Smart is going to coach circles around Sark, damn sure I believe Dabo Swinney is going to have his guys ready. They thrive in the it's us against the world. It's just something about Kirby Smart and Dabo Swinney and how they can convince their players that nobody believes in you, that nobody thinks you have a shot. And those guys and those young men in that locker room play for their coaches. And I think those guys from Clemson will play for Dabo Swinney. And I think they put probably one of the largest upsets in terms of the first round. I think Clemson, the last seed in the 12-team college football playoff, gets the win against Texas. And hey, is it going to be bad for the SEC brand? Of course it is. But who gives a damn? Alabama's not in, and I don't care about the conference that much to be like, well, I'm going to cheer for the SEC. I ain't one of those guys. I think Clemson comes in, and I think Clemson wins this game. Cade Klubnik utilizes his arms, but also he will utilize his legs. They will be big in this game. He will have to extend plays to get some deep throws because I just don't think their guys are just going to get open automatically. Utilize your tight end, who's also a top draft prospect and go in the second or third round. You're going to have to use your running backs, and he's going to have to use his legs in the running quarterback game. And I think they're going to do that well. And I think they're going to play that time of possession game and, kind of keep the ball out of Quinn Ewers' hands. There's a lot going on with Quinn Ewers in the Arch Manning situation. There was a report that there's a team right now that's actively paying players not to hit the portal so they can have them for the playoff. And me thinks that happens to be Texas. With a lot of the checks that they were cashing last offseason, there are guys that are wanting to seek other opportunities, especially in that wide receiver room. And I think they are the team that's guilty of trying to pay their players to keep them on their roster. So there's a lot of turmoil going on. Obviously, we know the quarterback situation. I know who Cade Klubnik is. I know that Clemson believes in him. I know that they're behind him 100%. Give me Clemson. So, if you guys are following along, that means second round, Clemson, or quarterfinals, I should say. Clemson faces Arizona State. Tennessee faces Oregon. Penn State faces Boise. UGA faces Notre Dame. Okay? So let's go there. And I'm going to start off with the UGA Notre Dame game. Reports, Carson Beck may not be playing this quarterfinal matchup. They're expecting him not to play with I think it's the elbow injury he suffered trying to throw a Hail Mary against Texas at the end of the first half. Got bent back pretty badly. It may be without him. And one would say you're going against Marcus Freeman, one of the best defensive minds in college football, one of the best young head coaches in football. I will say this. I trust Kirby Smart with obviously more than that, maybe almost a month of preparation with his backup quarterback and getting him ready against the Notre Dame defense then more faith I have in Riley Leonard going up against his UGA defense. To beat UGA, yes, running the ball as a quarterback especially helps, but you have to be able to beat them over the top. And I just don't trust Riley Leonard enough to beat that defense over the top consistently. And so it's easy. I don't really need to get into the meat details. I got UGA over Notre Dame, and it's one UGA going to the semis. Boise State versus Penn State. I think it might be actually good. I think it might actually be a very good matchup. When you think about Boise State and Ashton Jeanty and what he does running the ball and the type of force he can be and how he can keep Penn State's offense on the sideline if they can't stop him. They do have some really good playmakers at the wide receiver position and the tight end position. Their young quarterback, I think it's Madsen is his last name. He's been playing well. I don't think he gets enough credit for what he's been able to do because, of course, we know they stacked the boxes against Ashton Jeanty, and he's a phenomenal athlete and talent at the running back position. But also, their passing game has made teams pay all year. Now, the strength of schedule obviously isn't anything. They only played one really good opponent, that was Oregon, and they had a lead and gave it up. And so I can see why one can say, yeah, they could challenge Penn State. But I talked about this before. Penn State's reward for losing the Big Ten championship was being given the easiest path to a national championship. And I think Penn State takes advantage of that, and they get to the semifinals, beating Boise State. But I actually think it's going to be a close game. I think Boise is going to hold it. Now we have Tennessee versus Oregon. And if you guys have been, following me on Twitter at Future NBA Gov or even a few of the shows, I have said I believe that Oregon is going to lose, whether it is against Tennessee or Ohio State. I have picked them to lose that game, and I am not going off of that. So the Rose Bowl in Cali, I have Tennessee beating Oregon to go to the semifinals. All right, we got that? Clemson versus Arizona State. Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. That's in Georgia. It's going to be a little more of a home game for Clemson than it will be Arizona State. I'm not about to go into many details. I love Arizona State. I love what they've done. They shouldn't have been the 4 seed. Boise State shouldn't have been the 3 seed. Or maybe. Yeah, you know what? I'll say that. Arizona State probably should have been the 4 seed, but Clemson damn sure should have been the 3 seed. But it is what it is. Again, Arizona State has some great players. Quarterback's been great. Scatterboo, in their running back position. They're without their number one wide receiver, but they play really well. Coach Dillingham has been great with this team and just elevating their play. A team that got sanctioned for recruiting violations and nobody believed in them. I think what they won 2 or 3 games last year. They're in the college football playoff. But I think Clemson is better. Here's the thing, folks. Clemson's 2 losses on the year were to UGA week 1 and to South Carolina, who happened to be the hottest team in college football at the time. Other than that, they've won. They've won. I'm sorry. It's going to be hard. And I think they lost. Maybe they lost another game too. I don't know. Who did Clemson lose to? Let me see. He's at 10-3. So who is all Clemson losses to? So UGA, South Carolina, and Louisville, where Louisville just kind of came and ransacked them. But that happens. You kind of look past your opponent. Louisville wasn't the best team or as good as they were last year, obviously, being to the ACC championship. But when you think about truly the two really big losses that they've had, this Clemson team, it's been the two SEC teams. There happens to be the SEC champion and the hottest team in the SEC being the University of South Carolina. They're going to win this game, in my opinion. If they get past Texas, they have a free shot to the semifinals. That's what I'm going with. So, again, keeping up with the bracket, we are in the semis now, right? We have Tennessee versus Clemson, which I think would be in the Cotton Bowl, or I think they let you pick, but let's just say Tennessee versus Clemson. And we have UGA versus Penn State. UGA is going to be Penn State. All right. Like, that's easy. I mean, with or without Carson Beck, I think Carson Beck does come back by this time. And I think he helps get UGA to the national championship game. Tennessee versus Clemson. Now, how fun would it be if we get an all SEC college football playoff championship game? Unfortunately, it would be two teams I hate. I wouldn't say I hate UGA. I just like UGA, but I hate Tennessee. So I definitely wouldn't want Tennessee to win that game. And I wouldn't want them even feeling good about making a national championship. Let's just be honest about that. But that's going to be a really good matchup. Again, we talked about Tennessee's defense and how they can take over games with their defensive line. Obviously, Clemson relies heavily on their running game with their running backs with Cade Klubnik and being able to hit some big plays and design some things to do that. But here, again, I personally will go with the coaching advantage. And I believe, again, Dabo Swinney is one of the two best college football coaches now that Nick Saban has retired. And I have Clemson defeating Tennessee in the semis, which basically means we have a rematch from week 1 of the regular season, UGA versus Clemson. And I'm here to tell you guys, I've said this, I keep saying it. If you don't have that script A on the side of your helmet, it will be almost impossible to beat Kirby Smart in a high stakes game. I am going for UGA to win their third championship in 4 years. And then we're going to be talking about Kirby Smart and if he's supposed to be in the GOAT and all these things. And I can survive. But I think UGA wins. Now, I do not believe that it would be a blowout. If we remember that first matchup, it was 6-0 at the end of the first half. 6-0, and then UGA blew it open in the second half. Clemson is a much better team than they were then. Clemson could run the table as the 12th seed and win the national championship. I'm not just because I'm picking UGA to win, that does not mean I am not giving Clemson an opportunity. Because when I say that this is two of the best coaches or the two best coaches in college football, I mean that. And so that just means just as much as Kirby is going to have his guys ready, Dabo is going to have his guys ready. And we've seen Dabo in these matchups before when he's been one of the two best coaches. He's beaten Saban twice in the biggest game. National title. He's beaten Saban twice. Took it to him. He can do the same thing to Saban's understudy and Kirby Smart. So don't think for 1 second, just because I picked UGA, that I don't think Clemson has a shot in hell, because I guarantee you they do. Okay? So Clemson could shock the world, and ACC would love it, and they'll say, hey, we told y'all we're better than the SEC, whatever it is. It's cool. But there you have it, UGA fans. This Alabama fan is picking you to win the national championship, your third in 4 years. It's depressing. Depressing to say. Anyways, That's it. That's it, folks. I don't want to go into it anymore. But looking forward to it. For all the fans of the teams that did make it, uh, congratulations to y'all, man. Enjoy it. Going to a 12-team playoff, at least for your experience, is for you. Experience that. Especially if you're a fan of some of the teams that hadn't had these types of opportunities in a number of years. Embrace that and cheer these young men and these coaches on to victory. Should be a fun playoff, and I'm excited to see how it ends in its first rendition of the 12-team format. But anyways, as I always end, if there's anything I said that offended anyone, hey, that's a good thing. It's an opportunity for me to learn, and it's an opportunity for you to teach me. All I ask is that you keep it respectful. Peace.